YouTube, how's it going? I'm back with another 7 round NFL mock draft. This one is for the Minnesota Vikings. Big offseason for them, getting Kirk Cousins, Sheldon Richardson. They need some O-line help. They need some help in some other positions, in my opinion. Also doing a fan voted mock draft. Link is always in the description. A little slower pace than these videos. Give you guys time to vote, so make sure you go vote for your team or any team. But let's get to this. I got an interesting round one pick. I haven't really seen it in any other mocks. Maybe you have, but Dante Jackson, corner from LSU, interesting player. I think very underrated because he's viewed as probably the top. Well, it should be Minka Fitzpatrick is the top slot player, defensive back, corner, safety in the draft. But Minka Fitzpatrick may be used as an outside corner, maybe used as safety, maybe used in the slot. But Dante Jackson is for sure a slot corner that can also play outside. Now, the Vikings, or I should say Mike Zimmer, no one plays four cornerbacks in a game like Mike Zimmer. He's the DB guru. Last year, obviously, Rhodes and Wayne's on the outside. I expect him to stick with that. I thought Wayne's had a pretty solid year, except for the NFC Championship game, but really nobody played good in that game for them. So I think they're good outside, starting wise, and they also play Newman and Mackenzie Alexander a lot on the in the inside. So losing Newman, he wasn't too good at the end of that season. I mean, he's old, so it's very impressive what he was able to do in his career. Played at a high level the last few years, but you could see him starting to go on a decline. So they need another guy like Newman. Alexander they like in the slot. They need another guy that can play in the slot. Dante Jackson can do that day one with his speed and his attack on the ball. But the thing I like the most is he also can play outside. Some of these corners are just strictly outside guys. Dante Jackson brings both to the table. So a guy like Rhodes, he had some minor injuries during the year, had to come out of the game, and then they'd throw either Newman or Alexander outside, who are strictly slot guys. So if that happens, you can slide Jackson outside. While starting him on the inside, you can slide him outside. So I expect the Vikings to go multiple corners because they need them, and Zimmer won't be able to resist. And yeah, I mean, like I said, no one plays four corners like Zimmer, and right now they have three only that are starting caliber in that defense. So I like Dante Jackson a lot. Maybe some of you view him as overdrafted if he goes first round, but try to think of other corners that can do what he can do, play in the slot day one and also play outside. There's a couple of them. But no one like Jackson. I think obviously Minka Fitzpatrick, the Vikings would view way higher on their board, but where they're picking, Dante Jackson's more like it. Other guys, maybe Rashawn Golden or Kaiser White, who may be more of a safety. So there's really not too many of these guys. Your chances of getting him later unlikely. You may have to reach a few picks, but he's definitely a good talent. On to round two, Billy Price, the guard slash center for Ohio State. I think he'd play guard. I like Pat Elflein at center still. His teammate, actually, maybe once known as a first round pick. I think he really just fits that Vikings offense. Pretty obvious that he does. I don't think he's a first round pick, though, because of his pec injury. Supposedly, he may be good to go right away, but the Vikings had their own injuries they had to worry about in the past and they dealt with. So I don't know if I see them using a first round on an injury guy, and I think there's a chance he might be there for their second round pick. Um, they obviously would like him, but it'd be something they would have to think about because they had to deal with injuries in the past. Maybe they won't like that, but we know it's a fit. We know they need a guard. They may need another tackle too. I mean, it depends on what Remmers is going to do. He started at tackle all year. They moved him to guard, but was that because of injuries? Um, they have some guys that can play. They just need mainly they need some depth, but they could use another starter. I do like Isaiah Wynn for them in the first round, but there's a good chance he may not be there. But if Isaiah Wynn is there in the first, look out for him. But on to the next round, third round, Nyheim Hines, running back from NC State. This could be their new McKinnon. They lost McKinnon in the Niners. Hines has the same speed, similar style player, more of a receiving back, but could run the ball very well too. Very strong for his size as well. I see a lot of McKinnon in him. I think the Vikings will like him. Uh, this year, I think it will be Dalvin Cook and Murray, both guys that have a chance to get injured. I think Murray was getting better. He had surgery right before the season last year, and he was getting better, but probably only one more year in Minnesota for him. So you got to be thinking about the future, and you got to hope Dalvin Cook doesn't get hurt. But if he does, you got to have a guy like this. So I think they will like Hines. I think he's a third round pick. Fifth round, Nathan Shepard, D tackle from Fort Hayes State. I think they'll like this guy very much. I think he'll fit in at 4-3 D tackle and at Zimmer defense. He has a big range. I mean, some scouts say he's a third rounder. Some are more comfortable down here with the fifth. This is kind of best case scenario. These 7-round mocks, team by team mocks that I do. So he has a range of 3 to 5. Some teams may be feel a little safer down here because small school guy. I mean, he dominated at that level, but a lot of these prospects would as well. So I mean, he's a freak guy, big guy. Really anywhere in 3 to 5. I just know he'll fit that defense. That's why I mocked him to the Vikings. 6th-round Matt Pryor, offensive tackle, TCU. Went and got Price, who's going to be your guard. Now you get some tackle depth in Pryor. They had TCU's tackle from last year, Collins, who they liked a lot. So they may be taking a look at. There's a couple TCU guys. Boom will go a little earlier in this. But I can see him fitting in on that O-line. Kind of used to be just if you like the O-lineman, you go get them. But now there's really schemes for blocking, schemes for certain types of O-line. So, I mean, they really have to do their homework these days on these offensive linemen. So it's kind of hard to pick out which ones will fit. But I think Pryor can fit in there and for depth. And it's smart to get O-line depth back here because really the chances of the earlier round offensive lineman being good and the later rounds offensive lineman, there's really not much of a difference compared to like quarterbacks. Obviously, the earlier round quarterbacks or the earlier round cornerbacks, running backs are going to be better than the later round guys. Offensive line, obviously the earlier round guys are going to be better, but the past has shown it's not that big of a gap. So I like drafting guys like this a little later. Another 6th-round pick, Oren Burks, linebacker from Vanderbilt. The Vikings need some linebacker depth, losing some guys. I think he can fit in at weak side linebacker in that Zimmer defense, where Ben Gideon plays. Surprising rookie from last year actually started for them. But Oren Burks, I don't think he takes Gideon's spot, obviously, right away, but I think he has potential to in the near future, but you expect Gideon to get better. So mainly it's depth, but a guy that can fit that weak side spot, in my opinion. So I think they'll like him if he drops to the 6. Could be a 5th-round guy, possibly. Another 6th-round pick, Jeff Badet, wide receiver, Oklahoma. They lost Jarius Wright, or they had to cut him, actually. So they get a cheaper version of him. Badet, the wide receiver from Oklahoma, can play in the slot. I mean, he also can play outside. I think they'll like him for kick return and to play in the slot. But obviously, you don't expect a 6th-rounder to play right away. So more of a developmental guy. I think he has a chance to be better as a pro than he was in college. He ran in the 4.2s at his pro days, so that kind of bumped him up a little bit. And I think teams will view him as a potential guy with room to grow. And again, he can be a better pro than he was in college, production-wise. 7th-rounder, Jalen Dunlap, corner from Illinois. This guy's really not talked about enough. A lot of upside for him. Long corner. I think the Vikings, again, if they don't draft a second one by this point, I think they will take one. A guy like Dunlap with his length, he's for sure an outside corner. Obviously around 7. Will he play that early? No, that's like all around 7s. But I think Zimmer will like his length and in the later rounds here, and he'll have the ability to back up Trey Wayne, Xavier Rhodes, and possibly see the field in the near future. Zimmer just good at developing corners, so I mean, really, I trust his judgment on whoever he takes. If it's a corner that's a little higher on my list, and they pass on and take one that's a little lower on my list, I'm not going to say it's a bad pick. I trust them. There's a few teams that I really trust in developing corners. I trust their judgment, so and the Vikings are one of them. So we'll see what they do. I think O-line's the biggest need. I think they definitely are going to get their future backup running back, and I think corners. I think I'd be surprised if they came out of the draft with only 1 or less. I'd be very surprised. I think it would be 2. But yeah, that'll do it for the Vikings mock. Stay tuned for the rest of these 7-round mocks. Regular mock drafts is actually a fresh one of those that was just uploaded yesterday, so check that out. Plenty other NFL coverage all year round. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. That'll do it. Goodbye.